With the extreme hype for Borderlands 4, I wanted to make a video going over the things that I would love to see added. First off, guys, you guys are giving so much love to the channel. I appreciate every single one of you guys. There are 6,000 of you returning viewers who are not subscribed to the channel. Please subscribe. This helps me and the channel grow, as I love making Borderlands content. Sometimes it does well, sometimes it doesn't, but overall, I would love to be making Borderlands content full time, as long as the analytics are there and everything is going good with the videos. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers. I can't believe we're almost there. Absolutely insane. But enough of my rant. Let's get into the top things that I would love to see coming into the title for Borderlands 4. Now, these are going to be in no particular order. We're just going to kind of go down these ideas that I have, and let me know down in the comments below what you guys think of my ideas, what you guys would love to see added to the game. When it comes to weaponry, as we know, Borderlands is known for having so many weapons in the franchise. I would love to see dual wield weapons come back. As we know, Salvador had this as one of his skills, and I think this would be great across the board for all Vault Hunters. And nothing crazy, mainly dual wielding pistols, dual wielding SMGs. I just think it would be super fun when you're in a cluster, whether it's endgame, you're fighting a huge group of enemies and just laying down fire. I would also like to see Uridium weapons return. I think they can implement this very well. We may see this. We see kind of a different variety of weapons from the trailer. Nothing too crazy, because as we know, the Borderlands franchise has so many different unique weapons. So are they going to return? Is there going to be a different switch up? We do not know. I also would like to see cosmetics get completely pulled from the loot pool. Now, there's these ideas going around where you could either, once you pick up the cosmetic, it no longer is in the loot pool. I do like that system, but I think overall cosmetics should be tied only to shops and buyables. Now, I know we had this with Crazy Earl. He had specific cosmetics, but I think it'd be interesting to have cosmetics tied to missions where you pick them up, and that's the only way to get them. But also different shops around the planets or areas that we go to would be interesting, and as we progress the story, new ones will be unlocked in the shop, and that's the only way you can buy them, through progression, maybe through a specific currency, because as you guys know, in Borderlands 3, money comes at abundance, and there is really nothing to do with it. So I think if the cosmetics are only tied to a store, that would be pretty interesting, and I think it would be better because you could just buy what you wanted. You had to progress the story to unlock specific ones, maybe finish different endgame content, raid bosses, whatever it may be, and then have special, very unique cosmetics actually be available to you for purchase. I think that would be interesting. I would also like an enemy and drops index. Now, this is nothing new. Plenty of games do this, but somewhat of an index system to kind of look at everything that's in the game. Drops, enemy types, raid bosses, mini bosses. So we kind of have a running list of every single item, weapon, enemy in the game. And the only way for this to update is for you to actually encounter them. Once you encounter them, you get a little bit of information on it. Once you collect it or kill that enemy, you get your complete filled in index for that enemy. I think that would be super interesting. Just have a full index, kind of can read about it, have more of an understanding. And maybe you picked up a weapon and dropped it and didn't really use it because you weren't focusing on it at the time. And then you realize by going back to this index, you're like, this weapon actually seems pretty good for my build. Let me go see where the dedicated farming is. Let me go farm for it, grab it. I think it'd be great, especially with new and returning players. Instead of having to look up the drop rates and drop chances and locations for the dedicated drops for weapons, they can just look at their index respectively and find those locations easily like that. I think that'd be super interesting. Now, when we're talking about weapons and enemies and all that, dedicated drops, I would like to see kind of a system. This is kind of interesting. Something I've been thinking about is dedicated farming per location. So certain weapons and weapon types can only drop from certain bosses. Now, I know we kind of have that right now, but based off of the location that you're in on the map, now I don't know if we're going to be going to different planets or the planet's going to be absolutely huge with a bunch of different regions. That's kind of what I'm thinking that they're going to lean towards. Less planets, more regions on one planet. That is like Borderlands 3 where it's a completely different zone. But let's just say you have Zone A only drops shotguns or only drops Hyperion style weapons, and this would tighten up the loot pool tremendously. I think it would be pretty interesting if it was implemented correctly, because instead of killing a boss and you have 4 different weapon types from 4 different manufacturers, it would be interesting to actually have regions tied to specific weapon manufacturers as well as types. Like, this guy only drops shotgun, you know, and it would tighten up the loot pool a little bit. The chances of them dropping, of higher tier loot dropping, may decrease a lot, but I think this could be implemented pretty well in my opinion. I also would like to see less visual clutter. I think currently in Borderlands 3, it's not terrible in my opinion, but for some players, totally understandable. The visual clutter that they currently have right now for the title is absolutely insane. I like the idea of having many things on screen at once. Bunch of things popping off. It creates the chaotic scenes and the chaotic moments for Borderlands franchise, but The visual clutter was a little bit too much in my opinion for Borderlands 3, so I'd like to see that dubbed down a little bit. I'd also like to see the ability to save builds. So having specific builds in your menu and you can save them based off of what raid boss you're going to do, what endgame content you're going to do, whether you're going to be farming, maybe you have a farming build, maybe you have a fun build that's just kind of unique and random, maybe you have a grenades only build, or you have a build specific for endgame content. I'd really love to see the ability to save maybe just up to 3 different builds, and we can apply anything to them, and it's universal across the board. Saving builds I think would save a lot of time instead of switching out pieces, switching out specific things for the character. I think the ability to save builds overall would save us a lot of time, and it would be super fun to kind of mix and match the synergies of different builds, and jumping into specific content would be a lot easier. We won't have to go back to our bank, drop weapons, put weapons in our bank, and we could just have the builds respectively right there and select them on the fly. I also really think, as you guys know, this is the biggest thing for Borderlands content and just any content in any game. I would like to see a longer end game and maybe a live service style. Now I know a lot of people are kind of turned off by live service. I don't know how they would implement this because I don't necessarily want it full live service, but I think the lifespan of Borderlands 3, I think they could do that with 4 and extend it, and I think the best way to go about this potentially is a live service style, where the end games are kind of like Destiny, where it had a weekly rotation of updates and weekly updates to raid bosses, mini dungeons, challenges you could do. And I really think this would put a boost to the end game content. Now this can be a little bit hard to implement because I know a lot of players like playing offline, including myself. I play primarily offline, so I don't know, maybe there's a way that this could be implemented where you can jump in and choose to do the weekly challenges, weekly raid bosses, whatever it may be. And I think this would be a very interesting way to go about it, because I'll tell you guys, when Destiny was out in its prime, that was the only reason I played, is I would jump in with a few of my friends or solo and do the weekly challenges. I think this is going to fix the queuing of endgame content, because currently in Borderlands 3 the queuing is kind of terrible. Now I know that could be based off of the player base and how many players are online. I do think with the weekly updates, new raid bosses, new mini dungeons with different effects and different buffers and debuffers attached to them weekly will boost not only the endgame content feel and strengthen the community by having people jump on each week to do these endgame dungeons and people wanting to actually work together. I think that'd be pretty interesting. Again, I don't know how they would exactly implement that, but here are a few things that I would love to see come to Borderlands 4. There's plenty more, and I'm going to be making a video on things that I do not want to see. I got a lot of Borderlands 4, Borderlands overall content in the bag. If you haven't already, check out all my Borderlands content. I appreciate every single one of you guys. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like on it. And again, 6,000 returning viewers that are not subscribed to the channel. Let's try our best to get to 10,000 subscribers. We're so close, guys. I appreciate every single one of you guys, and as always, stay happy, stay hyped, and good luck looting.